And we're live. So remember, first response paper, if you haven't picked a topic for that yet, you should get on that. If you want to talk to me about it, please do so. Please put the phone away. But really, that's, I think, the trickiest part with these is coming up with a topic and making it specific enough. So focusing in on a particular event, a particular character, but it should be something fairly small. You don't want to talk about, Odysseus' journeys as a whole, or all of book, 4 or whatever. You don't want to talk about something that large because a page and a half is just not enough space to really do that justice. You've also got book 10 questions will be due at some point after we finish book 10. Currently I have it listed as Friday on Jupiter Grades, but I don't know that we're going to finish book 10 today. I guess we'll finish book 10 tomorrow. But the questions are also posted on Jupiter Grades under that assignment, so you can find it there. Poems, we've got our poetry recitation due, what date is that? The 29th, shortly before our first full festival day, where there will be poetry as a competition between the houses. So we're gonna. So the first one is a partial one. That's next week. The first full one is going to be November 2nd, Monday, November 2nd, and that's the first one that we'll have poetry at as a competition.
So when is the one next week?
The one next week is on the 7th. So for the Wednesday, I believe, next week. So usually for that one we have like the first 2 periods, and then
The game for rest.
and then so we'll spend the rest of the morning doing the combination of. Usually we do a rosary together because it's the Feast of Our Lady of Victory or Our Lady of the Rosary. And then sorting the new students into their houses, getting the new house shirts. I guess that's when we'll also make the sort of official presentation of the winning houses championship shirts from last year.
Wait, who won last year?
Stewart House. For the first time since I've been here. Carol won, 6 years, 5 years in a row. And then last year,
Yeah, Cal, we like that.
Cal came in second.
We should have won last year.
So anyway, I'm the faculty head of Stewart House, so I was pretty thrilled about that.
Wait, time out. I thought Carver was like the tough one.
Calvert?
So the points come from a number of different sources. So from grades is one of the sources. The festival days are another one at which there's competitions in poetry, but also in games. So usually we do things like capture the flag, but we can't this year because of the distancing. I'm not sure yet what we're going to do next week, but we are going to have some kind of competition, physical competition in the afternoon. We also do, we'll do dodgeball a couple times in the year. And there's some other things throughout the year. Sometimes teachers in classes will use house points as an incentive for students as a reward for in-class things.
And I could come and jog into school?
Yeah.
On the festival day, so I believe the one next week will be in dress code for the beginning. Usually the way that we do the first one is we have the first 2 classes. So you should be in dress code for that. And then we'll change into athletic clothes. The things that we ask is no cleats in the building. And then once you get your house shirt, that you wear your house shirt to the festival days. And then shorts or sweatpants or whatever. So each of you will get a house. You'll get a T-shirt with the color of your house. So red for Stewart, green for Calvert, blue for Carroll, and gray for Washington.
Coach Q, come on.
And is he? Yeah, I guess that's right.
But Stewart House, they have the most parties, bro. I swear.
Yeah, we had a good time last year.
They always have food, bro.
We've got something planned for next week also.
We never get food.
Really?
Yeah.
We never get
Yeah.
food, bro.
So
How do they end up?
so we did a draft. The heads of the house. So myself, Mr. Matt Stroot. Coach Spinner wasn't able to be there, so it was actually Mr. Devereaux, and Mr. Tobin. And so we have a list of all the new students, and so we went around, we did a draft. Who came in last? Anyway, so, it's the reverse order from how the houses were placed last year for each round of picks. So in each round, Stewart got the 4th pick because we came in first last year. And so we keep brothers together. We keep sons with their fathers. So Mr. Stroud's son Colby will be in Washington House with him. What else? Oh, so sisters, their house at Brookwood too, they have different names. But so they'll keep siblings in the same house. So
What are the houses' names over there?
Bourbon, Arundel, Custis, and Darnell.
I've never seen that school in my life.
So it's about a mile down the road, like that away.
Why do they have cooler names?
Well, so the way that where their names come from are sort of the female equivalents to these things. So Washington House here, named after George Washington. The sisters of the boys in Washington House are in Custis House of Brookwood. Custis was George Washington's wife's maiden name. She was from the Custis family, very important family around the time of the American Revolution. Stuart House, named after the Stuart dynasty of kings who were the ones who gave the charter for Maryland to be founded. The girls in those families are in Bourbon House, and Bourbon is another royal dynasty that was closely connected with the Stuarts. And so each of those, there's that connection there with more masculine emphasis and more feminine Brookwood. And they do competitions there also. But so families will stay together. So like if my daughter goes to Brookwood, she'll be in Bourbon House because that's the equivalent of Stuart over there. If my son comes here, he'll be in Stuart House, things like that. So anyway, and the best festival day is the last one of the year because so before the games for lunch, the moms of each house, they bring in insane amounts of food. Usually Stuart House does barbecue. What does Calvert usually do? Calvert will often have something like that, or fried chicken. Carol usually does tacos.
We can't
Well, so the first helpings, you go to your own house, and then after that, it's a free for all. But anyway, everybody just stuffs themselves, and then we have games in the afternoon.
I'm trying to I want to go, but like that introduction, like I don't want that to be like sweet. Cause I feel like everybody will be looking at me.
Only for a few seconds.
But you just go up there and get your shirt and walk in, man.
Yeah. So Mr. Davern will have a name. We'll have a name of a list of all the new students, and so everybody will sit with their houses, and the new students will sit off separately. Mr. Davern will read off the student's name, tell them what house they're in, and then they go and sit with their house, and people cheer and whatever. So it's only a few seconds. But in the afternoon, then I think the festival days are one of the most fun things about being here. Anyway, there's somebody live at home watching this, probably thinking, when's he going to get to English stuff? Okay, so let me just read a couple of these poems aloud so we keep hearing them. And then after that, we're going to go outside and read. So I'm not going to live stream my reading, but we're going to continue with Book 10, probably get close to the end of Book 10 if you're at home. So please keep up with that. We started Book 10 yesterday. So let's do the poems and then a quick review of what we covered yesterday in Book 10, and then we'll go outside. All right, so the poems here, yesterday we did Ulysses, is that right? Yesterday I read Ulysses, I'm pretty sure. So I'll just read the other two today. First looking into Chapman's Homer by John Keats. Much have I traveled in the realms of gold, and many goodly states and kingdoms seen. Round many western islands have I been, that bards in fealty to Apollo hold. Oft of one wide expanse had I been told that deep-browed Homer ruled as his demesne. Yet never did I breathe its pure serene, till I heard Chapman speak out loud and bold. Then felt I like some watcher of the skies when a new planet swims into his ken, or like stout Cortez, when with eagle eyes he stared at the Pacific, and all his men looked at each other with a wild surmise, silent upon a peak in Darien. Then we have the opening of the Odyssey by Homer, here translated by Alexander Pope. The man, for wisdom's various arts renowned, long exercised in woes, O muse resound, who when his arms had wrought the destined fall of sacred Troy, and raised her heaven-built wall, wandering from clime to clime, observant strayed, their manners noted, and their states surveyed. On stormy seas unnumbered toils he bore, safe with his friends to gain his natal shore. Vain toils, their impious folly dared to prey on herds devoted to the god of day. The god, vindictive, doomed them nevermore, men unblessed, to touch that natal shore. O snatch some portion of these acts from fate, celestial muse, and to our world relate. Please pick a poem by the end of this week. I really strongly recommend that. Whichever one you enjoy the most, because then it'll be the most enjoyable one to learn. So yesterday we started book 10. Odysseus has already been a couple places in book 10. So he left the island of the Cyclops after this terrifying encounter where a number of his men were eaten alive in a very disgusting way. And he ends up being cursed. And so where does he go in book 10? Where's the first place that Odysseus ends up in book 10 we saw?
Isn't it like with the new nymph for break?
That's going to be the third place that he arrives in book 10. There are two that he stops by before that, though. Yes, so Aeolia is the first one, is the name of that. And who lives in Aeolia? Yes, and his name is Aeolus. And he's the king of the winds. What happens when Odysseus goes there to Aeolia, the home of the god who's the king of the winds? What happens there? What does he experience there? Anyone give me a quick 10-second? They feast. They stay there for a whole month partying. It's pretty nice. Then what happens when they leave? No fighting here.
Materials gives Odysseus the wind of north, south, and west.
And east.
And east.
Yeah, so Aeolus, the king of the winds, he sends a west wind to blow Odysseus and his crew back home to Ithaca, and he gives him a bag with the other three winds in it, with the north wind, the south wind, and the east wind. They get almost all the way to Ithaca. They can see it. They can see people's fires, the smoke rising up from people's cooking fires on Ithaca. And then what happens?
Then they open the bag.
Who opens the bag?
The shipmate.
Odysseus' men, his crew, his shipmates. Why do they do that?
Curious.
They're curious, not just curious.
They think that's what Odysseus wants to share with them.
Right, they're not curious so much as jealous. They think that Aeolus has filled this bag with gold and silver as a gift to Odysseus, and that Odysseus isn't sharing with him from this voyage. He's been steering the ship all the way with this beautiful west wind blowing them home. Running before the wind is what it's called, sailing, when you've got the wind directly at your back. It's very exciting because you go very quickly, but it's also fairly dangerous because your ship is not as stable as it is when the wind is at a bit of an angle. Okay. Yes. Then what happens? So the winds get released. Where do Odysseus and his men end up?
They come blown back to Aeolia.
Back in Aeolia. What do they do there? Right. Odysseus says, "Please help me. Send me back again with the winds. The king of the winds, send me back." And Aeolus refuses. He says, "Obviously, if that gift wasn't able to get you home, clearly you're cursed by the gods, and so I'm not going to help you because I'm not going to go against the rest of the gods." So then where do they end up? After Aeolia, next place they end up. Anyone? Here on page, what is this? 233. 6 whole days we rode, 6 nights nonstop after leaving Aeolia for the second time. Where do they go? Starts with an L.
You said 2 what?
Where do they end up after 6 nights, 6 days and nights of rowing? Where do they go after Aeolia? Lastrigonia is the name of this land. The people are the Lastrigonians. What happens in Lastrigonia? Yes, there are some more cannibals there. What else happens? Not only are the Lastrigonians cannibals. How is this different from their encounter with the Cyclops? There are lots of them. Okay, yes. What else?
They smashed the fish.
Yes. They kill Odysseus' men like fish. Why are they able to kill so many of Odysseus' men? They're giants. Why else? There's a geographic aspect to this.
Because they can't swim that fast.
His men can't swim that fast, but why are the Lacedaemonians able to get so close to them? Right, there's this harbor on the island, which Odysseus says it's very deep, and there are cliffs around it. So we've got cliffs all around this island here. That's a terrible illustration. Let's make it a little bit better. It's not so bad. And most of Odysseus' men anchor their ships inside here. So when the Lacedaemonians come, they're able to stand up on the cliffs and hurl rocks down at them. What does Odysseus do differently? Right, Odysseus anchors his ship outside here. So his ship is able to get away. How many ships does Odysseus lose?
11.
11. Out of how many did he have to begin with? 12. Only his ship survives. This short little episode, the vast majority of his crew are killed. Might be an interesting topic for maybe a little too much for a response paper, but for an essay at the end of the quarter, we're going to write, have this aspect of cannibalism to them. But they're different in many ways. The Cyclops is much less destructive. There's only one of him, all up by himself. The Lacedaemonians, they've got a society. They've got a king, and they just utterly destroy Odysseus' fleet. That might be an interesting topic for an essay. All right, so yes, Lacedaemon, they're man-eating giants. Man-eating giants. And Odysseus loses 11 out of 12 ships. 11 out of 12 ships. All right. When we left off yesterday, we had just Odysseus and his men had just arrived at the third destination in book 10, which is where? Remember the name of this island or who lives there? Not the Cyclops. We already saw the Cyclops back in book 9. Circe lives on this island. And remember the name of the island? Aea, yes, it's in the name of the chapter. Aea. Home of Circe. We're going to see Circe today. All that we saw yesterday was that they arrived at this island, they're exhausted, they're traumatized by the experience with the Lacedaemonians. And what does Odysseus do? What did we just see him do at the very end of where we got yesterday? What does he do for his men? He gets food. What kind of food does he get? Not fruit. A little bit more exciting. Meat? What kind of meat? Not pork. Venison. He kills the deer. The stag. Yes, so that was where we left off yesterday. So we're going to pick up today on 236. We can go outside to read. Guys who are at home, please make sure you read further through book 10. Try to get that finished no later than tomorrow.